Hey, how's it going? It's Nick here. And printmakers, if you've ever tried to print at home, you know the struggle of not having a drying rack or somewhere dedicated to put your prints away. And so your studio ends up looking like this, and a lot of times you don't have a big giant table like this, so your prints start going all over the floor, wherever you can put it. The struggle is real. And so, at school, we had big, cool drying racks, but those things cost a hefty fortune, weigh a ton, and just take up a lot of space. So today we're going to be talking about a few alternatives to having a big drying rack that is suitable for the home studio and doesn't break the bank. Most of these are just less than $10. And so let's get into it. And so first up, it's probably the most straightforward and most simple. You've probably seen it before, but it's going to be the humble clothesline. And so for this, we're just going to use some string or some rope, and then for here I'm going to use some binder clips. Some people use clothespins. I like binder clips because I can kind of loop them through the top like this, whereas clothespins, they kind of sit horizontally. And so I'm just going to get a bunch of them out, and I'm going to string it through the string here. Some people put them on kind of like this, and so it's just kind of easy to take it on and off after the fact, but it kind of displays your prints kind of horizontally in line with the string, and you get less kind of coverage with that. And so I'm going to speed it up a bit and put all these binder clips on the string. But I really like this method because it's really easy to scale up or down. However many prints you need to hold, buy that many binder clips. They're relatively cheap, and then that's how many prints you can hold. Very simple, very straightforward, nothing to it. And so now that I've got everything put together here, I'm gonna go ahead and take my assembly. And the tricky part about this is I need somewhere to put this clothesline, and so you kind of need two poles, or anchor it wall to wall or something like that. And so here in my studio, I've got these two kind of support beams running through it. I'm just gonna string it up back in here, and bada bing bada boom, you've got a print drying rack clothesline. And so pretty much it's straightforward. Just go ahead and clip your prints up on the line, and put as many prints as you can fit on the line. Saves you a bunch of table space, that valuable table space when you've got a home studio. Now, one of the things that I don't quite like about the clothes drying rack is that the binder clips can be a little bit strong. Sometimes they'll pinch your paper and leave a little bit of a dent. Nothing too crazy, and they need two hands to operate, and so I need one hand to kind of hold open this binder clip, and then another hand to kind of slot the paper in there. It's also pretty cool that if you need to double your capacity, you can kind of take a print and then just kind of clothesline them back to back. And so here I can do two prints in one clothesline, and I could fit a ton of prints on this clothesline. So this next one's going to be pretty similar to the clothesline. It's going to be an overhead kind of drying rack situation, but this one we're going to get a little bit more crafty. And so usually you'll want some supplies and some tools to build this one yourself. And so you're going to want a drill, some screws, some spare wood lying around. Mine's some 1x2s that I got from Home Depot. And then you might have a bunch of cardboard lying around. If you ever buy paper online, you're going to get these giant boxes of cardboard. And of course you're going to want a kitchen knife. Ideally one that kind of has like a thick wedge going on for it, and so skinny at the tip, at the kind of edge of it, and then kind of really thick at the back to kind of wedge apart this cardboard. And so I'm going to cut myself an 8-inch strip of this cardboard and then fold it in half. And so once it's cut, I'm just going to kind of score a little line in the middle of this, taking the blade out of my box cutter and just kind of using the tip of it to kind of score or crease the center of this cardboard. And after I folded this one, I realized that I cut on the wrong side of the ruler, and so one side of this is 1.5 inches longer than the other side, and so I just went back, cut it down, and so that crease line is in the center of this cardboard. Now after I've got that, I'm just going to fold it into a little tent shape, just so I can stand it up and cut some slats into it. And if you want to be a little bit more methodical, you can take a ruler, measure out some spots where you're going to cut it, every ½ inch or every inch or so, like that. And so I'm marking it here with a Sharpie like this. And then I'll come in with my knife and then just kind of cut into this cardboard V. And then of course do a little bit of wiggle at the top. And so the idea is that the wedge shape of the knife kind of makes the opening a little bit wider at the beginning, and then it just kind of tapers and gets tighter the further up you go. And so when you kind of push a piece of paper up there and kind of accommodate different thicknesses of paper, and then you just kind of push it up until it gets to a tighter point in that cardboard. But yeah, make sure once you kind of put that knife in there, you can come back for a second round and really wiggle that knife and like open up that gap, because it makes it so much easier when that gap is wider rather than just having it like a razor thin gap. Yeah, once all your slats are cut, I usually break free a first few at the end of it, and then I'm just going to kind of take it over to my scrap piece of wood and then screw it down to this piece of wood to make like a little kind of upside down L shape. Nothing fancy. And of course, flip it over, screw the other side in. Don't overdo it because you can always rip through the cardboard. It's cheap cardboard, doesn't last forever. I know this clamp puts it out of like the under $10 budget range, but I like to attach a clamp to the bottom of this assembly, and I can just clamp it onto like whatever table that I'm working on, move it around the studio if I need to. It's really handy. But yeah, without the clamp, just screw it to a table, screw it to a wall, wherever you need to put it. But yeah, this one, I like to put it overhead of wherever I'm working so I can have my drying solution right at the workstation. And then I can just take my print and then slide it up the little slot that I've made. And then hey, I can hold, this one holds like 36 prints, even more if I put them back to back. And all it cost me was a piece of cardboard and a piece of wood, and I don't know, I think it's pretty neat. I think I prefer this over the clothesline, mostly because I only need one hand to put the prints in, which is super nice, and that two-handed operation that I was doing before with the clothesline, but just one hand, put the print up there. Super useful, especially in like dirty printing operations where usually one hand's probably dirty and I have only one clean hand. And then the removal is really nice because I can just pull it out nice and easy with just one hand. I don't have to use two hands to pull the prints out. For this next one, we gotta make a short trip to your local hardware store. Here in the United States, I feel like Ace Hardware is pretty good at having like weird, unique, like if you just need one weird, unique spring, they probably have it. And so I'm at Ace Hardware right now, and I'm looking for an extension spring that's not too tough to pull and has lots of little loops. I don't really know what you call them. And so this one on the right over here looks pretty cool. It's got a nice kind of wide diameter and it's got lots of little loops, but this one is a little too tough to pull by hand. When I try to go and pull it, it takes a lot of muscle and it doesn't really want to give, and so I'm going to look for a looser spring. And so I found this one over here. It's got lots of churns, a really nice wider diameter, and it's a lot easier to pull by hand. This spring cost me $8.70, and so we're going to go ahead and take this one home. And so for this drying system, I'm going to need a board of wood. It can be just scrap plywood, whatever you've got lying around, just nice and long. And of course, I'm going to take my drill and some screws and that spring that I got from the hardware store, and I'm pretty much just going to put a screw on either end of this board and then stretch it across. And so it's a bit tricky for me to stretch just by hand to go all that distance, and so I went ahead, got myself a little metal rod like an Allen key, and then used it to help me pull this all the way across. And just like that, drying rack is done. I've got space for 100 prints on this bad boy. Let me show you how it works. And so if you're like me and you print a lot of cards, so small stiff pieces of paper, this works perfect as a kind of card drying rack. And even if you have a big drying rack, I feel like this is still a really great solution to have in your studio, because those big drying racks have really big gaps in them, and smaller prints tend to fall through those gaps. Whereas here, when you make small prints, they all stay nice and well protected. I feel like you could have both of them in the studio. even when I get a drying rack, I'm still gonna have one of these lying around. But yeah, the density on this is great. You could hold like 100 prints in such a small area, and then when you're done, you just pick up the whole thing and just set it aside. But unlike the other two drying racks, this one does not work well with kind of soft, more flexible papers or bigger sheets of paper. And so these prints that we were having on the other racks earlier, they just can't work in this drying rack. And so I feel like there's a space for both systems in a print studio. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video and maybe you found a system that might benefit your studio. If I helped you out, maybe hit the like button or subscribe for more printmaking content. But until then, happy printing. I'll see you next time.